And that gives me a perfect segue to the mortgage deduction, Warren. There's a lot of talk about scaling it back or perhaps eliminating it overall. What do you think about that? Because people look at it and say that's a way to wrap our arms around some of our tax problems.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely to happen. If it were to happen, it would be part of an enormous tax package. It's certainly not going to happen in isolation or just with a few items. And there's a big constituency out there for maintaining the mortgage interest deduction.
Well, you, with your housing interests from Benjamin Moore Paint to Shaw Carpet to Acme Brick, are you part of that sort of silent lobbyist or not so silent lobbyist movement?
No, we wouldn't be lobbying on something like that at all. But the question is whether you get a whole package that encompasses that and many other things. And if you eliminate deductions, perhaps you would have lower rates, for example. So you have to look at the package that finally gets introduced.
Would you think that it might derail the housing recovery?
It would depend what it was combined with. I mean, if you had lower tax rates but eliminated the interest deduction, it's hard to measure. You'd have more than one variable affecting.
What do you think of the good old single-family dwelling as an investment these days?
I said a year ago that I thought it was a very good investment for people that knew that they were going to live in that locale for a considerable period of time, found the house they liked, then I told them to take out a very, very long-term mortgage. And I would say the same thing today. It's not quite as attractive as it was a year ago, but it's still an attractive holding, but only if you're going to keep it for a long time.
Well, in part because of what the Fed's done and kept low interest rates. But is the Fed, continuing on this easing plan at their own peril? At some point, with GDP looking at about 2.5%, still very slow, but at least it's growth, how long can they continue this large-scale asset purchase plan, or should they, perhaps?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that it surprised me how long we've done it already, and it has had no inflationary effect. And of course, I would expect that I've been wrong on expecting inflation for some time, but I would say that if you keep building the Fed's balance sheet and building the reserves of banks and so on, I think it's an interesting question how you reverse that. And secondly, I do think it has inflationary consequences down the road, but I've been wrong.
Well, maybe it's Ben Bernanke's problem now, but maybe, as you said at the meeting, he might just pass the baton to the next guy to deal with it.
Yeah, well, if I were the president, I'd have him keep the baton.
Well, I look at the issues that your company really has to look at. What will be the #1 issue that your board is talking about today? I want to let our viewers know that right after Mr. Buffett and the group that we're going to have here leave, they have a board meeting right upstairs at Keywood Plaza. Yeah. #1 issue they're going to discuss.
We always discuss succession. That's the main issue. And we want to have, and we do have, and then we'll meet and talk about it again today, but we have 100% agreement on who should take over Berkshire if I die tonight. And we've got multiple people that could do the job, and the #1 candidate is a unanimous choice. But we'll talk about that subject. We've got a new member of the board joining us this year, Meryl Whitmer, and she will be part of that discussion and hear everybody's views.
Okay, so he just outed our mystery guest. Meryl Whitmer will be joining us in a Fox Business exclusive coming up. It's her first interview as the brand new board member, having just been voted in. She'll join us in just a few minutes. But Warren, talking about succession, one of the questions at the shareholder meeting was, is it Ajit Jain who runs your insurance business? Ajit is a delightful guy. You only call him out so many times because you keep saying he's so brilliant. One of the things you and Charlie didn't say was that, no, it's not Ajit.
No, and we didn't say yes, it was Ajit, and we didn't say no, it wasn't anybody else, or yes, it was anybody else. No, it's not a subject we discussed publicly. And as I mentioned at the meeting, we've got $50 billion invested in 4 companies, Wells Fargo, American Express, and IBM and Coca-Cola. I don't know who the next CEO of any of those 4 companies is going to be, and I never have known.
Well, there